this, as people may have just seen in the credits, is adapted from a Japanese novel. How did you if you remember when and how you first became aware of that?
I'd never read the book. hadn't heard of it. And then the producers sent me a copy and they just said, I think you might be interested in this. And so I had a read and I kind of just let it percolate for a while. And it's I don't know if anyone's read the book, but it's a much more traditional Japanese ghost story. There's a malevolent spirit and so it's quite different, but the central idea that's in this film about meeting your parents again was in that novel. And it was strange. I just remember reading it and, it's not about my life. It's about a guy living in Japan who is a screenwriter, which I guess I am. It goes back to his house and I just felt like I was drifting back into my own past as I read the novel. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought how I could put myself into this story. And then, started to adapt it. And, it's not gay in the original novel, so I changed that, which I thought everyone was going to be like, oh, God, really? Please don't do that.
Well, so you've spoken about how personal this was made. You've made this to be, aside, not just the fact that the protagonist is a gay man, but also right down to details like where you filmed some of this. Can you just talk about just more in depth about how you made it tailored to yourself and why that was important and helpful to do?
Yeah, and in retrospect, I'm not entirely sure why it kind of spoke to me so much on a personal level. I will say that my parents are still alive, so there was definitely it's not autobiographical in that regards, but somehow it did speak to my understanding of kind of loss and grief and pain, I suppose, and how we store childhood pain or pain growing up, and then how as an adult we can't sort of get rid of that pain and it can stop us in our tracks. And so I was trying to work out about how personal I should make it, and because it is about the past, I only had my own past really to go on because it's quite a loose adaptation. So I spent a lot of time looking at my old photos, digging deep into my own memories, essentially. And then the house that you see is my old childhood home where I used to live. And I hadn't been back there for 40-something years, 42 years. And stupidly I decided, let me smart. Let's go and see if we can film in that house. And the guy let us film in the house. We redecorated, obviously, to make it look closer to how it looks in the film. But it was I knew I was doing something that probably wasn't necessarily healthy. To me, I don't have great memories of being in that house. So, I didn't have a particularly happy childhood. So going back into that place was a strange environment. But I don't know. It felt like I sort of had to do it. It is about a story about a writer going back into his past. So I wanted to do that alongside the protagonist doing that too.
Before we talk about your surrogate and the other actors in the story, let's talk about just the visual look of even just the film. You chose to shoot it in 35 millimeter, just like your wonderful last film, 45 Years. It doesn't necessarily make life easier to do that. Why was it important to do it anyway?
Yeah, from the very beginning, I knew I wanted to shoot on film. There's so much analog things in the film, records, photos. It just felt that to shoot on film would make so much sense for the texture of the whole piece. And just the way that we think about memory. Film just has a certain quality that does that. But I think tonally it was a tricky one, this film, because it is a ghost story, but it's not really a ghost story, and it's not a horror film, but it's not really a drama. And when I was trying to pitch the film, everyone's like, tell us what it's like. Another film. And I was like, oh, shit. I actually can't really think of much, which sort of terrified me because I'm like, okay, I have to try and work out how it is that I want to tell it. And I think shooting on film and all of those decisions you make, everything from color to design to everything, is all about how am I going to create the right tone that this film can sit in, which is in some sort of strange liminal space that gets stranger as the film progresses.
I can say, because I remember speaking with Charlotte Rampling back on 45 Years, and I've read what even though these actors have not been able to be out and about with you, they previously shared their experience of working with you. Actors love working with you, and I wonder how you went about casting this. Was there did you know from the start who you wanted in these 4 key roles, or was there sort of a casting process?
It was definitely a casting process. Andrew came along pretty quickly. I knew I wanted the actor to be gay in real life. It's not always important. I don't think it has to be, but for this, it just made sense. There was too much nuance and subtlety that I wanted to get across, and I didn't want to have those conversations with someone that wasn't, so it was just easier for me. And that limits your options quite a lot anyway, because there aren't that many out gay actors. But I loved Andrew anyway as an actor, so it wasn't obviously just because he was gay. And I sat down with him, and he just really understood what this was trying to be and really responded to it, so it was fantastic. And then Claire and Jamie came next, and it was a weird one because then I'm trying to cast 2 people that make sense as his parents. I'm also sort of trying to cast my own parents at the same time. Again, not healthy. So there was a strange conflict, I think, a little bit. But I think they're both brilliant. I love them both. And they were so... It was interesting. I always did want the film to not just be about the experience of a gay person who has lost his parents. So when Claire and Jamie read it, they brought so much of themselves into it, and they are both parents. And I knew this was also about parenting.
And Claire knew Andrew.
And she said, I just want to be his mum. I'm desperate to be his mum. It's so strange. Why would you want to be a grown man's mother? But I think actually that really helped, because to be honest, it really could not have worked at all, the idea that they're all the same age and having these conversations. And I think the way that Claire plays it is so motherly, but at the same time, I don't know, his friend. It's a really interesting way that she plays it. And then we spent a long time trying to cast Harry. I spoke to a lot of people. And then Paul read it and wanted to do it. And I was like, okay, great. I mean,
this is the guy, right?
You don't look to say no.
Right.
And he's brilliant in it, and he'd want to work with Andrew. And watching the 2 of them together, I was like, yeah, they're great.
Well, that's exactly where I wanted to go next, because they did not know each other prior to this. I believe they've said they did do things maybe at your encouragement to cultivate some chemistry and all of that. Can you shed a little light on how they came to develop that?
Yeah, I just made them have sex with each other. And I was just watching. It was a bit awkward, but it was good. We went to a concert together in London, and I could tell that they were really into each other because they completely ignored me most of the day, and they were just talking to each other and putting their arms around each other, and I was like, okay. But you could tell that they really liked each other, and they're still really good friends now. You know, Andrew had a birthday recently, and Paul was there. I did not get invited. So you say actors like me, maybe this is not entirely true. But I really think if you can get actors that want to work with each other, that care about working with each other, then there's chemistry already there because they want it to be the best it can be.
Claire Foy has, just to note a few things, her hair was modeled after
my mother's hair.
Your mother's hair. That's a wig. Now her voice... She has said...
Yeah, she said this is the first time, which I find amazing, that she's used her own voice in something, which is really interesting to me. I mean, I've said this now before, and she's probably going to get angry with me because maybe it's not true, but she's always been other people that are very far removed from her, I think. Yeah. And so I think this was a very interesting role for her to do.
And, maybe we can just dissect one scene with her that's amazing, and then particularly amazing when you know what was going on technically in the bed. Can you take us into what some of the challenges were that you guys were up against with that?
Yeah, it's a good the scene when they're in the bed, the 2 of them are talking and talking about what Adam would have dreamed of their life together. And it was start with, it was in my old parents' bedroom, so that was strange in itself. Plus he's wearing those pajamas, which is when he came into the room, and I'm like, oh God, I don't know. But I kind of like that it's funny and absurd, and then it's not, because I think we all want to wear our pajamas again as adults. We want to feel what they feel like, soft and cozy and comforting. Yeah, but that scene, it's all one shot, and we shot on film, and a roll of film is just over 5 minutes, and the take is about 5 minutes and something. So like the first 5 takes ran out by the end of the time, and we didn't have that much film, and it was all just an absolute nightmare. But we got it in the end. But I love all those kind of pressures. So I knew I didn't shoot any coverage for that scene, so I'm like, it's gonna be one shot. It's gonna have to work. You've got people rolling out of the bed on either side because you've got to sneak Paul in. And actually, that was Paul's very first day. Wow. So his very first scene is to get into bed and then kiss Andrew, and that was the very first thing he did. I think it was a good thing to start with.
Nice. Just thinking back to 45 years, and then with this, I guess if there's one commonality, it's sort of looking back at the past and reconsidering the way things that you thought they were, maybe just looking at it in a new way. Is there any rhyme or reason to that? Are you somebody who finds yourself contemplating the past a lot, or just coincidence?
Yeah, I think I just think that especially our childhoods, but not just our childhoods, they have such an effect on us, and we can't escape them. And were we supposed to think that we're getting older and braver and stronger and all those things? But the pain that we might have felt growing up is always still there, and it just finds its way to kind of appear. And there's always something about how the past can creep back up on us, and I think that's the thing, and it always can get you when you least expect it. And I think I get dragged backwards and forwards. It's like music, all the music choices and stuff. I think music has that effect to like throw you back into the past and feel how you used to feel. So I think I've always been interested in that as a kind of idea.
You've now taken the film to a number of film festivals and interacted with audiences, journalists. Is there one scene or two that you get asked about the most, or that people tell you affected them the most? I have a feeling I know.
I think it's really interesting because it really does depend on the person. So I do think that, different people take different things from it. Someone who is a parent, let's say, might take something different. Someone that might have lost their parents will take something very different from it. Someone that's experienced grief in lots of different forms can take something of it. I think queer people take other things from it, and other scenes become, a lot of, queer men that I speak to, the scene with the dad really resonates with them, and they really feel that scene. I also think it's age dependent. So I think older people think things different than younger people. I think as you get older, you get more reflective of your past. Also maybe a bit more sentimental and soppy about the things that were important, which is when you're a bit younger, I would resist. So I think that's been really nice to know that different people can take different things from it.
Yeah. Would you, I guess you mentioned it's hard to put a label on what kind of a movie this is. It's not, as you say, not quite a drama, not quite a ghost story, not quite a, let's say somebody in your own life who isn't aware of the film says, what are you working on? What have you just put out? How do you describe this? What's your way of...
See, I can never describe it, even when people ask me about it. So I'm like, it's kind of about this guy, and they're like, I'm not sure about that. Look, I know what the film was about to me, which was always about how love can soften the pain, I suppose, or soften the harder edges of life, and how do we understand how to love, and how do we get through things in our life? It's through loving again and again and trying again. So I knew what it was about for me, and I think partly making the film was a process of me coming to understand that as well, and seeing how parental love and romantic love are so entwined together and how they affect each other. But in terms of describing the film, I'm like, you could kind of say it's got ghosts in.
Well, and to what you're speaking about as far as love, that moment that we've all just seen now at the end played to the power of love with the fade out and all of that. I guess that's sort of the fact that we pull out, or that it pulls out and shows, you show many other, they're but one among many. Is that
Yeah, there's so many ways that you can read the end, I think, and people have got different interpretations of it. I mean, for me, when I was writing the script, it came from a very simple place of like, again, not going back to my being young again, but like feeling like, as a gay person growing up then in the 80s, that would not be a possibility for me, that I would find love, or that wasn't going to be anything that was real. And so when I was writing, I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to try and go the biggest I can at the end to like prove to myself that it does mean something and is important. And so I think that was partly why I wanted that ending to be like that. But, you know, it is the important thing in the end, you know, and a star can be long dead, but you still see its light. You know, it's cheesy, but it's also kind of true. So I do think that love does have that effect. And so I just kind of wanted the film and the final moments to sort of take off from any reality and just hopefully send the audience back thinking about something.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, congratulations again. Thanks so much for doing it. Andrew Haigh.
Thank you very much. Cheers.